between these years, you're part of the silent generation. These are the people who lived through very, very hard times. The Great Depression of 1928-29, the stock market crash. They were called the silent generation because they complained about nothing. They took everything on the chin. They were very stoic. And if you think about your grandparents, you will realize that they're not whiners and moaners and complainers. They just don't. Because that's not the way that they were brought up to be. People after that, after the Second World War, 1945 to 64, baby boomers. So most of us have parents who are baby boomers.
Well, some of us just born in that year.
Well, some of us. I said most, I didn't say all. Baby boomers had just come out of a Second World War. Right? So they saw a world on the one hand destroyed by war, and on the other hand, they saw the economic benefits that war brings. The rebuilding of Europe, it basically funded the growth of economic growth and prosperity of America for 30 years, because Europe had to be rebuilt from the ground. So first you use the ammunitions to destroy the world, and then you spend the construction and the other investments to rebuild the world. It's a nice business model, but it only works so many times. Then you had Generation X. I'm part of Generation X. I love this term, X. In fact, my Gmail address is omar.x.abedin@gmail.com. I'm not kidding, that's my actual address. It just means a generation that people don't really understand, because we're not boomers, but we're not millennials either. And millennials are what we're going to talk about today because, well, let's say half of Pakistan is millennials. Half of the country falls into this camp. And last but not least is Generation Z, which is going to be a very interesting generation in the coming years, because these people are aliens. Generation Z is nothing like any of the previous 5 generations. Nothing like them at all. Their behavior, thought process, mindset, belief systems are entirely different than anything that has come before them. Millennials grew up, for the most part, with certain things. So, actually, before that, let's just look at the defining events, right? So, for the silent generation, it was the Great Depression. For baby boomers, it was the Vietnam War, because this was the first time when people actually rebelled against a government that said we must go to war, and they said, why? This is not our war. Why should we fight this war? It was the first time in history that this movement, actually, people stood up against a sitting government. And it's very, very significant for that reason. Generation X, well, the AIDS epidemic. People were dying left, right, and center. People in Pakistan believed that this was a punishment from God sent down to the gays because, what they were doing was haram. And guess what? In about 10, 15 years, they found medicine that allows people to live pretty much a normal life for a long time. Millennials' defining moment was this. If you were one of the people who actually watched this happen, this is an image that cannot be removed from your mind, because it was so powerful. It was so overwhelming. This single act. And the consequences of this act were what? The war on terror that started the day after the towers came down. It has impacted our neighbors, it's impacted us. I mean, look at what's happening in Afghanistan, and has been happening for the last 40 years. I mean, wow. All I can say is thank God we're not Afghanistan. But if you look at the border between Pakistan and Afghanistan, it's the world's most porous border. So we have guns, we have drugs, we have all kinds of interesting things coming through Pakistan on their way to the rest of the world. Because of where we are, and because of who we are. We saw the recession, but they call it a recession. It may as well have been called the Second Great Depression, because it rocked the world back on its heels for like 5 years. And some people are calling it a W recession, so it's not over. There will be a second round or a third round of this declining markets around the world. But on the flip side, technology. These are kids who've grown up with TVs. They've grown up with a glowing screen in their hands. And now doctors are saying that children below the age of 6 years should have zero exposure to screens. Zero. Not 1 hour, 30 minutes, 20 minutes, zero. Because it affects brain chemistry. The movement, the lights, the flickering, it's an addiction, and it causes all kinds of disorders in children as they grow up. ADD, attention deficit disorder, hyperactive disorder, these are all things that have been linked conclusively to screens. But in Pakistan, the minute a child is born, we put an iPad or a tablet in their laps. Ki beta ye dekho, maze karo. You dekho? Things are dancing. So if we look at the millennial consumer, approximately half the country is millennials. What do? Well, most of them are homemakers. About a quarter of them are students, or they're unemployed. A few of them are business owners, and about 11% are gainfully employed. So most of you would fall into either the employed workers, or students, or both, right? What do? Well, the first thing they have is this sense of entitlement. And we've heard this a lot about millennials. They have a sense that the world belongs to them, and that the world owes them something. So, for example, if you ask millennials to come into work at 9 o'clock in the morning, they have a huge problem with that. Especially in Pakistan, especially in Karachi. In the Nordic countries, people come into work at 7:45, 7:30. It's also because they have very, very long days. So the sunlight is out at 4 o'clock in the morning. But I've seen people come into work at 7:30, and there's a big parking lot, huge parking lot, 1,000 car parking lot. They will go and they will park in the furthest parking slot. Last one in the corner, and then they will walk. And it might be minus 10 degrees. They've got the coat, and they're walking, and it's now a 3-4 minute walk to the lobby. And so you ask them, Lars, I have a question. Why the hell did you park over there? And Lars says, no, you don't understand. Some of my colleagues will come in late. I want to leave the space for them so that they do not get late coming into the office. And you're like, wow! Like, we would not forget that. We would park in the handicap space if we came in at 7:30 in the morning. And the reality is that we would double park in the handicap space if we came in at 7:30 in the morning. Because whoever comes in late, that's their problem. But look at the difference in the mindset. So you're walking, and you came in an hour early, and you're walking in the snow, and it's colder because by 8:30 it will warm up slightly as well. But you're thinking about your colleagues and your coworkers and society in general. It's a different mindset altogether. Millennials, every millennial believes that they will be famous one day. What does that mean? I will be on TV, or on Instagram, or on Facebook, or I will have 15 minutes of fame. This is guaranteed to me. Why? Because I see other people exactly like me becoming famous every day. I will have 1 million followers on Instagram. Why will you have 1 million? Like, what do you do in your life that is worthy of having 1 million followers on Instagram? No, I will have it one day. Okay, boss. What more is there anything more that you want in life? No, I want to be famous. So this leads to a lot of problems because people then come in on their own schedules, they want to work on their own schedules, they will deliver stuff on their own time, not on your time. And that becomes a huge problem, especially in Pakistan, because as it is, things don't get done here on time. It's challenging getting stuff done. They are very tech savvy, and this causes us great discomfort because you have a 22-year-old sitting there telling you, boss, that's not how you log into this. Please give me this, let me do it for you.
Ask me.
Every day. Every day. I do it for my parents, my kids do it for me. It's a cycle. So I believe in paying it forward. So this morning my mother was like, I don't know how to unlock my iPad. And I'm like, what's the password? And she said, there's a password? So it took me 30 minutes to actually figure out what her password might be, and we cracked it eventually, but oh my God. So we know that these people are tech savvy. They understand technology because they grew up with technology. They're called digital natives, not digital immigrants. I am a digital immigrant. Yes, I have a passport, hopefully, that allows me to stand here and talk to you guys about digital, but I learned this stuff. I didn't grow up with it. It's not part of my DNA. Validation. This group of people requires validation from their peers. That's why this symbol, the thumbs up, is so important to them. They need this validation. They're very opinionated. They will give you an opinion about everything and anything, whether you ask for it or not. They have an opinion. My daughter ordered a $19 bracelet from Brazil, online. Like, okay, why? Do you not get jewelry in Pakistan? No. This bracelet comes from an organization for battered women. Among the Inca population of Brazil, which is the indigenous people of Brazil. And these women have, they've been thrown out of their houses, they've been abused, beaten up, whatever. They sit and they make these things and they sell them all over the world, and this organization supports battered women. It's a non-profit. After listening to this, how can you say no? No, I don't support battered women? Like how? How can you say that? So the product costs $19. There's $21 worth of shipping charges. And it's a $40 purchase, and you're like, okay, fine, it's 5,000 rupees, and you're supporting. And I after going through this, I requested my daughter to think about the battered women in Landi, or Korangi, or Malir, or Karachi, like anywhere in Karachi. Why do you have to be thinking about battered women in Brazil? Because they want social purpose. There has to be a purpose for an organization to exist, not money. Money is not a purpose. Money is a byproduct of things that you do. And if you make money while fulfilling a greater societal need, the chances of your success, long-term and sustainable success, are much greater. 85% of these people are watching TV. 23% of them are on digital. This number will be 50% in the next 1 year, if not higher. And I'll tell you why. There are 3 trends that are happening right now in Pakistan that will cause an explosion in digital in the country. Number 1, the cost of smartphones is going down like nobody's business. There was a time when the cheapest smartphone was 25,000 rupees. Now the cheapest smartphone is 5,000 rupees. And pretty soon it'll be 2,000 rupees, which is about as cheap as you can get for a phone. The second thing that's happening is that the cost of data in Pakistan continues to be the cheapest in the world. And I'm not even joking. For the amount of money that I pay for 30 GB of data, you might get 1 GB of data in Dubai for the same absolute dollar amount. So that is not going up, by the way. The trend continues downwards because there's competition. There's 6 or 7 mobile companies, and they're all competing for business. And the third one, the scariest one, is that Google has enabled voice search in Urdu already. This happened like 4 or 5 months ago. Now the algorithm currently doesn't understand Urdu very well, but it's learning. तो आपकी उर्दू और आपकी उर्दू और मेरी उर्दू और KPK की उर्दू में बहुत फर्क है. But there will come a time when you will be able to pick up your phone and speak to it in Sindhi. Google Baba, makhe hi khape. And Google Baba will reply to you in Sindhi and say, Baba, hi hitte milandu. And at that point, people will go, what the frick is going on? So all of a sudden, the 60 million people who are on the internet in Pakistan will become 160 million people. Because all of a sudden, the literacy barrier is gone. It's no longer about, oh my God, I don't know how to type my own name. in English slash Urdu slash Minglish slash whatever the hell we use nowadays when we're WhatsApping. But that will not be a thing anymore. Why do you think WhatsApp is so popular in Pakistan? Because half the population doesn't bother to type anything. They just press the button. हाँ यार वो जरा रोटी ले आना वापसी में. That's it. And if you don't get the message, that's your problem, not his problem. Right? Because he sent the message. If you're in a bad internet area, that's your problem. And he can then tell you to, if you come home without the roti, you will leave again and go and get the roti and then come back. But most people will get the message. So, that is what I call the singularity in Pakistan. When these three things come together, you will see a massive increase in your online services that are being demanded from you, in the way that people interact with you and your company. Even your B2B customers will start talking to you in a different language, because they will expect you to be digital. They will expect, and digital does not mean taking your current processes and putting them online. That's not digital. That's digitization of existing processes. But you're not maximizing the power of digital if you're doing that. Digital actually allows you to rethink and redo processes in ways that, well, I mean, IKEA is the champion of this. Globally, you're shipping, what, hundreds of millions of SKUs to thousands of destinations all over the world. And all of these SKUs have little bits and pieces and just come, पुर्जे बोलते हैं. हजारों पुर्जे एक flat pack के अंदर जाते हैं. And 99.9% of the time, they get it perfectly right. At that one point where you can't find the last screw and you end up blaming yourself. You don't blame IKEA. You say, I must have lost the screw somewhere because IKEA is perfect. So how much time do they spend on each medium? About 120 minutes on TV, about 60 minutes on digital. But that number for digital is already out of date. It's already as much as TV. And it's not necessarily I watch 2 hours of TV and then I spend 2 hours on digital. No, it's I spend 2 hours on digital while I'm watching TV. And all of you do this. I know you do. You're on your phones, you're WhatsApping, you're watching a YouTube video while watching a program, while chatting with 3 other friends. You might have the laptop open or the iPad next to you as well. And all of this is happening in parallel and you're perfectly okay with this. Everyone's fine with this. And you have no idea what's actually happening on any of the platforms. But we all think that we can multitask, and it's a fallacy. So what content do they like? Well, this is stuff they grew up with, right? CTV affected our lives. The reason that unwanted pregnancies went up in Pakistan in the rural areas in a huge way in the late 90s was what? Baywatch. You guys remember Baywatch? Yeah, all the guys are like, yeah, I remember Baywatch. The girls are like, yeah, no, not so much. But the guys all remember Baywatch because it was the first time that the majority of Pakistan saw a girl in a bathing suit and it was dubbed in Hindi. So they understood the dialogue. And then it all went to shit. It really just went downhill from there. Nowadays, there is content that they love, they follow it, they subscribe to it, and they're passionate about it. They will share it. So Cook Studio, Bulbule. You guys know these shows. These are very, very popular shows. People will follow them and watch them, but they're doing it on their own time. The idea that you have to sit in front of a TV set in order to appreciate a TV show is gone. When I grew up, and there used to be a Pakistan-India cricket match, or there used to be a Hum Safar ka episode or Dhoop Kinare ka episode, the whole